one of the things we discovered as we went through all the list, his bullet points, my bullet points, is we need your bullet points. So we're going to try to gain, and by the way, we will gain suggested areas with annotation as to who wanted them. Your earmarks will be well known, to try to find a priority. We do know that we have a growing government with growing opaqueness, simply because data is not information, and information is not necessarily usable knowledge. We want to make that step-by-step movement. So many of the areas that we'll be working in will not be of interest to the public, like databases that are interoperable, searchable, downloadable. But I think to many of you here who want to get to the details, who want to drill down, and for whom 72 hours or even a week would not be enough if we cannot give that portion of transparency, we're going to be working on that. Again, this is a true bipartisan caucus. There will not be a chair and a vice chair. We are co-chairs, and we will continue to operate in a way in which everything, we hope, will always be done by consensus. And with that, I bring you the co-chair, who next time, I think, Mike, you'll probably speak first.
Thank you very much, Congressman Issa. I want to thank Congressman Issa, his staff, and my staff for their efforts in the beginnings of putting this process together. You know, I thought for a while, just to give people the sense of what we're dealing with here, that we should have the inaugural meeting of the Transparency Caucus off-site at an undisclosed location, in secret, at midnight with no minutes, and we'll tell you when we're ready for reform. For those of you who know, I am from Chicago, and a very famous alderman once said, Chicago ain't ready for reform. If there ever was a time that Chicago, Illinois, and the United States was ready for reform, for transparency, and for accountability, it is now. As you know, popularity and the trust in government at all levels is at an all-time low. Whatever contributes to that fact, it's really incumbent upon us on a bipartisan level to attack that at all levels, and that is to be accessible, to be transparent, and to be accountable for all of our decisions. I firmly believe that the American public, if they know what you're doing, if they know that you're consistent and that you're trying your best, they will respect you. And I think all of us will settle for that. That's all we can ask for in our government. These are complex decisions. They are difficult decisions that we all make at all levels. And it's very difficult to lead when you don't have the public's trust. So I think we should be willing to make those tough decisions. I think it aids in our ability to make those tough decisions that we are as transparent as we possibly can be. And if there is one issue that's bipartisan, it ought to be this. So I want to thank those the first participants in the caucus who will present today. And unfortunately, we have to go vote right now. But I want to thank Mr. Polis, Mr. Foster, and Mr. Murphy for also being here today at the inaugural session, and those that will follow after we go vote.
Do you want to speak and then run?
Did they already speak?
We've already spoken.
I'll say a few words. Good. Thank you. Well, you know, Americans are experiencing unusually low levels of trust in government, some warranted, some unwarranted. I think it's most critical for us to take every step we can here at the federal level and encourage our colleagues at the state and local level to promote full transparency and accountability to the American people. In a recent poll, only 22% of respondents thought they could trust the government all or most of the time. Yet the Pew poll showed that while voters have a relentlessly negative view of Congress, the number of Americans who have a favorable view of the legislative branch declined by half over the past year alone to 25%. I think in terms of restoring the confidence and faith of the American people, we need to take proactive steps here to encourage full transparency, openness, and accountability to the American people. I hope that this caucus, and I know that this caucus will be an important part of helping to restore and earn the faith of the American people in this institution. Thank you.
I'm Congressman Bill Foster. I guess I represent 33% of the strategic reserve of physicists in Congress, and you know, along with Congressman Issa and Congressman Polis, you know, we do represent sort of the technical edge of Congress, or I guess the handful at most that know what XML is and things like that. And you know, up on the behind us, one of the the groups that I guess we'll be talking later is the Sunlight Foundation. And when I think about this caucus and what it can accomplish, we should make their jobs easier. You know, there's a huge amount of data that's spinning around on the hard drives in government. And, you know, you can say, okay, let's just publish all of it, and that's, you know, not fully useful. There are very serious issues about trying to make sure that when the government publishes data that it's accurate. On the other hand, if you spend so much time waiting for full accuracy that it becomes useless in terms of reform and oversight, then you've erred on the other side. So there's a lot of serious work to be done to make sure this happens. But our job is to make groups, the lives of groups like the Sunlight Foundation, easier, because it's only when you can actually see in detail how your government is working down in the depths and as well as at the high level when you're casting votes. I think it's that is an effective, I think the word is crowdsourcing of the government. None of us in Congress have the hours in the day to look in full detail at all of the things we ought to look in. You know, we should be very dependent on citizens and groups of citizens that go and look at the details and dig up all of the, you know, the smelly little crevices in government that should be subject to daylight and disinfected. And so anyway, I think this caucus is going to be a great start and continuing other efforts, but it'll be a great improvement. And my hat's off to the co-chairs of the caucus.
Hi, I'm Scott Murphy from New York, and I'm excited to be here today. I think this is a wonderful start to transparency in government. You know, my background is as an entrepreneur, an internet entrepreneur, and using those new technologies 20 years ago when I first started my companies, they were revolutionizing information and how we shared information. And that's what we need to do here in government. When I got elected a year ago today, we pledged to put my schedule online so people could see it, to put my earmark requests online so that people could see it, to use the new technologies the way they should be, to distribute information in an easy, accessible way to our constituents back home. And I think it's critical that we drive that across the Congress and across the government, because people are paying for what we do here with their government. It's their dollars, and they should be able to have easy access to the information of what's going on and how it's happening. And that's a simple thing, and it's not very hard to execute, but it does require some change in people's behavior and some adjustment to new technologies that make this information more available. And we're excited to work with all our partners to do that, and I'm really proud to be part of this inaugural event and thank Congressman Quigley and Congressman Issa for putting this together and the work that they've done on this. It's truly a bipartisan issue, and it's one that we're excited to work on going forward. So I thank everybody for being here today.
And now, in the nature of full disclosure, we're going to run to the vote. The first panel, would you please come on up and begin? We will return as quickly as possible, but because they have not given us disclosure on whether it's 1 or 2 votes, we'll be back in 10 or 30. Thank you.